And we are back with another episode of the Julius Files. I am your host, Jasan Julius. I guess today I'm probably going to be leaning into my blue-collar background. I guess the message that I'm going to try and put across to everybody is that, you have to be authentically yourself. You are a product, initially with your genetics, but it is your upbringing, your experiences in life, the journey that you walk that ends up making you who you are. It's a question of whether you, in totality, like what you see, and are there things that you need to change, and are there lessons that you can take away? And I'm saying that because, I've in my journey in life, there's many things that I've changed about myself. There's also many things that I have embraced and made sure that they're core principles or core parts of my being that I want to make sure that I tightly hold on to. I don't know if anybody will notice, but I also changed the background because the bottom of this, when I call them water cooler talks, it is more about perspective. Along those lines, it was it was Saturday, so it was more of an afternoon workout as opposed to a morning workout. But I guess the point that I want to make about perspective is I think everybody has that voice inside of their head. Some people will try and frame it as like a devil on one side and an angel on the other side. And then you've got your conscious being. And I'm like, I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole because before you know it, you could end up having multiple voices talking to you inside your head, and then you're a schizophrenic. And I think that you just have that internal voice inside your head, and at different times it can say different things and have different meanings to you. What the point that I'm driving to is that what part of what I'm doing with this podcast is offering perspective, because I'm such a big believer in accountability. And it was a realization to me that if you spent your life following everybody else's advice, you wouldn't feel like you were your own person. And I think by and large, most people should follow their own advice, because that voice inside of their head, like everybody are pretty reasonable, rational beings. Like you tell yourself what is the right thing to do. You tell yourself you know what you're doing when you're doing wrong. The question is, do you have enough mental fortitude and discipline to actually follow your own advice when you know that it is good advice? So I don't go out of my way to necessarily advise people, but I do try and offer perspective on the life's lessons that I have learned and the journey that I've been on, because I do believe in following that gut instinct. And I also know that it is a challenge every day to do the right thing, because generally speaking, the right thing doesn't line up with the easy thing. And I think most people end up going towards the easy thing. And I think that that's why we have a lot of health problems. I think that that's why we have identity politics, because people revert to groupthink because it's easier just to take somebody else's opinion and say, yeah, okay, that makes sense, I'll go with that, rather than actually having critical thought and thinking for themselves. So I don't look at what I'm saying or doing in that matter. I look at it as I'm offering perspective. And I've said, change your perspective, change your life, or allow your perspective to be changed and your life will change. Perspective. I am a proud blue-collar entrepreneur. Why am I stating it like that? Well, I had this, I don't want to insult the individual, because I don't know, maybe they were just feeling all up in their own feelings or just felt the need to be snarky, but I had a jackhole that just decided that they wanted to comment on a couple of my posts. And one of them was to the effect that I guess it's not possible for me to be a leader of a business and survive more than 10 years and still be blue collar. I adamantly disagree with that. I think that, again, everybody's answers are going to be different. That's the whole thing where it comes back to the word asshole, where I can see positive connotations in that as far as being a stubborn or difficult person for the right reasons. And then I can also see how somebody can frame it differently. I think being blue collar is, some of it is a state of mind. Some of it is like, it's a background for a lot of people. I believe that people come from all different walks of life. And I've seen I think it was a sign on the back of somebody's window: blue collar labor, dirty hands, clean money. And that struck me, because I'm like, that there's many ways to make money, but generally speaking, that blue collar person, there is that if you're being your authentic self, there is a certain pride that you're using your hands to actually make your money. It's pure. When I say it's pure, I mean, like, we had an event that we were tearing down for, and it was an incredibly hot, muggy evening, and I jumped in and actually started helping them break everything down. And at the end of it, I think that we were all soaked in a couple pounds of our own sweat, and there wasn't no shower available, because once we were all packed up, it was get in your car and then drive an hour and a half to get everything back, to unpack everything, because the job wasn't done until it was all unpacked. And then you get home and you're able to wash that hard labor off of you. And in that moment, I realized how much I was enjoying myself, because it took me back to a time where that was my daily. I've had people that have questioned some of my entrepreneurial posts, and they see some of the graphical, because I guess I've really tried to think deeply about this blue collar entrepreneur, and I think I tried to frame it as blue collar laborer turned entrepreneur. And then I brought it up to one of my managing partners, and I asked her if she would use blue collar as a way to describe me, and it didn't take her long to get to a pretty adamant yes. I'm talking about me, but the thing is that I guess that I'm more of an advocate for being authentic in who you are and however you are in general. Blue collar is just a part of my background and my life. I think that it's universally agreeable that if you perform labor inside of a factory, you're doing the blue collar work. I think generally blue collar work is no collar work, and then the white collar work is the guy that's actually sitting in the office. And it's not to say that they are not being their authentic self and very happy and productive in what they're doing. It's just a difference in paths. Mine was a different journey, though, because I like being very candid. Up into my early 20s, I literally just thought that I was just an unintelligent individual that was just willing to work hard. I had never cracked a book, had no desire to be in school, had no problem providing and putting food on the table for myself and my family through manual labor. And I was just fine knowing that at that point in time that I was going to put in my 30 plus years and move towards retirement in a regular blue collar job. At some point, I got really interested in the stock market, because I started thinking about the future and what I could do with my excess money that I had been manually working hard to produce. Then I started cracking books in the stock market. When I started having a little bit of success in the stock market is when I realized, like, the stock market is the ultimate putting your money where your mouth is. And just the sheer fact that I was having a little bit of success, that I was understanding it, knowing that, like, the best of the best were putting their money in the market, made me realize, not that I was like any type of prodigy, but that just maybe I was not as unintelligent as what I was telling myself, which has really come back to part of the changes that I've made in myself, has had a lot to do with beliefs that you speak to yourself and how detrimental they can be to your overall development in life. I felt the need to actually make this podcast, because when that guy said that, I really started thinking about it. And I think about the things that I've realized and I've said over time. And a major, like, epiphany for me was when my business coach got on me, because he felt like I was so afraid of hypocrisy that I was not allowing myself to change and develop and become my best self. It took me some time to really unpack that and realize that the hypocrisy that I was worried about was more of low character, not saying one thing and then doing another. What he was more referring to is those beliefs that you build through life and life's experience. And then if you're not open to perspective, you're not allowing yourself to learn and evolve and grow. And then I had to get to a point where it was I'm very proud of my blue collar background. I've joked about, literally, I don't even know how it necessarily happened. At a very young age, I found myself and found my way into Levi 550s. I think I might have tried out a couple other jeans, but it didn't matter. Once I tried on those Levi 550s, they became very comfortable for me. 99% of the time, even now, 30 some odd years later, I'm wearing Levi 550s. It's like, rarely will you see me in anything other than, and for whatever reason, I associate that with the blue collar background, the blue collar living, the wearing of blue jeans, even in environments that you would expect other people to be wearing suit attire. I'm walking in with blue jeans. I might still have on a blazer and or a collared shirt, but generally it's accompanied with blue jeans. I'm saying that because a lot of people, I think, will generally associate natural grit with blue collar labor or getting your hands dirty. But I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs out there that's not their background at all. And they're highly successful, and work is work, whether it be mental or physical. It's just where you pull your lessons from, what you subscribe the meaning of your life to, what kind of values you lean on. I'm proud of my blue collar background. It's not something that I run from, but I just came out of an offsite, and I was the coach in the whole thing. She brought it to my attention that but means you negate everything that you said, that you should start with a and. I'm proud of my blue collar background and where I came from, and I have allowed myself to change and evolve and become a different person. I do not run from that blue collar background. I do not run, hide, try, and avoid the people that were near and dear to me in that phase of my life. Am I a different person now? Yes, I've grown. I've evolved. I don't know, from my experience, in my opinion, the vast majority of blue collar labor people do not pour into themselves to become self-educated. They do not pour time and attention into reading books. This is something that I've done. I've heard of a lot of people talking about they want to knock out a book a week. I've done it, and I've done it for an extended amount of time. I've heard a lot of people talk about a book a month. In my earlier time of really getting into books, it was taking about a book a month because I was just a slow reader in general. I've heard people say, read every book you can get your hands on. And then a couple other people say, just find a couple good books and then just read them over and over again. I am a big believer that, and when we're talking about books in general, one of the most profound books that I ever read was called Think and Grow Rich. And it's like a cliche at this point that if you're going to get into entrepreneurship, you should read Think and Grow Rich. What I'm driving at is that Think and Grow Rich was one of the first books that I read when I was younger. And then when I came back around and read it 20 years later, I realized just how much it had impacted my life by reading it at such a young age. So my opinion on books in general, and when it comes to self-education, is that you should read as many books as you can get your hands on, because even if you're not totally absorbing all of the content inside of the book to be ready to recall and call upon over the short-term distance, I think that reading is like laying code in your brain that your subconscious will revert back to and call upon without you even consciously knowing it. I, to this point, have read hundreds of books. I honestly have lost count because the count of the books didn't matter. It was that I got into a habit of, I started my day reading, and after 3 cups of coffee, then it was, okay, now I've invested that little piece of my day in myself. Now I'm going to move on with the rest of my day. And I look back now over a 3 or 4 year period, and it has turned into literally hundreds of books. At this point, though, after reading those hundreds of books, I've realized that a lot of the books now are repetitious, saying the same thing in a different manner. And through all of these books, I have picked out a handful of books that I am intent on. I will read them many times. I mean, I've got half dozen books that I have now read 3 and 4 times because they were so impactful that it was like, okay, reread these again. They're very impactful, and you're laying code in your brain, which is, I guess what I'm getting at is that I think a lot of problem solving and vision accomplishment is done in the background in your subconscious. So what can you do to continually be feeding your subconscious mind? And I'm saying that from the blue collar background is that's where the evolution has came from. That's where the change has came from. My desire to be an autodidact, my desire to become educated without actually going to school, meaning being self-educated, has led me on a journey where I have moved away from, I don't perform the manual labor for my work on a daily basis, but that does not mean that background is not there and that I do not hold on to those values and that pride of coming from a blue collar background. And I think that that's coming from a lower middle class and knowing that I'm going to a different place, but not wanting to forget where I came from. And at the same time, knowing I am adamant that I'm trying and accomplishing moving up, because I want to live my best life, just like most other people. They just don't develop the discipline to listen to that inner voice and then do the hard thing that's actually going to get them to that better life. This individual that commented on this also felt the need to comment on my video about work-life balance, and I think the statement work-life balance is just stupid. But I also think, and here we go with the but, and I also think that there are better ways of framing it. And one of them I said was things that you do to make money and things that you do that doesn't make money, things that you do that are hard, things that you do that bring you peace. But some of those could be classified as that oxymoron if for a long time, and I think I probably still got one more in me, I do the seal coating on my own lots. Now, logically, I do the seal coating on my own lots because every seal coating company tells me that I got to close my lot down for 24 hours, and I'm like, that's not happening. But my point is, it also brings me peace, and I enjoy it, even though it's actual work. I think people in today's day and age are just trying to search for better, different ways, and in a certain respect, I also think that with all of this technology advancement, that physically they've become lazy, and then they try and excuse it away with work-life balance. And there is a certain peace and pride that can come out of manual labor and physically being able to outwork other people. It's not right for everybody. It's just who I am, and I have in many ways clung to it. And what I want to encourage everybody else is there's good and there's bad in everything. Discard the bad and cling on to the good and take the lessons and apply it to the next day. Like in everything that you experience in life, you're either going to squeeze every last ounce of value out of those lessons to apply it to the next day, or you are going to miss the point. And when I say that, it's like, and I'm not a regretful person. If I had one thing that I would do differently when I look back upon my life, I would have been more conscious in what I was learning and experiencing in those moments of life all the way through my life. I wish, my 14 years old, I start working full-time at Shoney's, and then Ryan's Steakhouse, and then Big Kahuna's Pizza, Pizza Hut, Noble Romans, Outback Steakhouse, before going to Chrysler. When I got into my entrepreneurial journey in food and beverage with Coffee Junkies and Pizza Junkies, I look back on the things that I learned from those experiences, but I also kick myself in the butt because I'm like, had I learned more from those experiences, had I been more conscious of the processes that I was being ran through, the systems that I was being shown, the training that I was being taught, had I been more conscious about that, I would have had more information to apply to my entrepreneurial journey. Same thing goes with Chrysler on a different scale, because when I look at Chrysler, I really tried to pull down everything that I had learned because that's what I was coming out of as I was going through the entrepreneurial journey. So I was trying to take the skills that I had developed and learned through ergonomics and through mass manufacturing and apply them to the business. But when I look back on it, again, I really wish that I had been a lot more conscious of the man assignments, the job descriptions, the workflow, because I started in assembly, and then I went to production, and then I went to the test garage, and then I went to the fork trucks, and then I went to repair. Over a 14-year career inside of Chrysler, there were many things that I was able to draw on for principles of mass manufacturing, but because I was just so in the moment of blue collar, just do the labor, I was not actually extracting the white collar lessons that I could be applying to the future that I'm now living, because I didn't see myself living it. And at the moment, I'm like, I just really wish that I had taken more to extract more lessons and pull more value out of the experiences that I was experiencing in the moment. If I have a piece of advice, it is that perspective. I hope that you are listening to that. You never know. Like at 20 years old, you would have never made me believe that I would be an entrepreneur 18 years into building multiple brands and building a foundation that literally had the potential to be a multi-billion-dollar business. Had somebody just bothered to tell me, you just do not know where your life is going to be 20 years from now, make sure you squeeze every last ounce of value out of every experience and moment in your life, because you just do not realize how applicable it's going to be to the next stage of your life. Nobody told me that. I really wish somebody had told me that and broke it down into a manner of making me understand there were so much value that I could have extracted out of my first 20 years before I ever went into entrepreneurship that would have been so helpful, and I just glossed over it. I didn't really pay attention in the moment, much less appreciate all of the tools and skills that I was developing. And I look back on and reflect, and now I'm offering up that perspective. You just do not know what path life is going to lead you down. You just don't know today what kind of crossroad you're going to come to, what kind of decisions that you're going to have to make 5 years from now. And the more that you learn and grow and purposely develop and retain information today, the better equipped you will be in 5 years when that crossroad or those decisions come up, because you just don't know what kind of twist and turn life is going to throw at you. And I look back and just simply wished that I had retained more information. Okay, I could probably expound upon that, but I'm just going to leave it right there. If you are listening to the show, I want to sincerely thank you, because again, I'm offering perspective. Everybody has to be responsible for their own lives. I know that my own personal development has been in large part because I have opened myself up to other people's perspective, to other lenses of life, because it gave me a bigger, broader picture of life as a whole and the backgrounds of the different people and where they come from. Perspective truly matters. I think that it might very well matter more than most other things when it comes to fully developing and truly living a life worth living. Okay, questions, comments, snide remarks. I'm all about it, because the snarky comments that got posted is what led to me thinking about this and making this podcast. If you know somebody that you think needs to hear this, please, by all means, share the show. All right. Till next time. Have a good night.